Good night, Hope. Sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite. Good night, Mommy. Sweet dreams, my little girl. See you in the morning. Good night, Daddy. Hope snuggled in her blanket as she watched her mother and father walk out the door. They smiled at her one last time before waving goodbye, flipping off the light switch and closing her door. Hope loved it when her parents came all the way to her room and put her to bed for the night, although she wished they would let her sleep in their room like she did in the good old days. Because for the past few nights, Hope hadn't been able to sleep. As soon as her parents closed her door, a strange anxiety ran through her mind, and tonight, things seemed to be worse because it was pouring rain outside. Hope could hear the pitter-patter of the rain droplets as they sprinkled on the rooftop and splashed against her windows. Hope always told her mother to leave the curtains open just a little. The night light was just too bright for her to sleep, but the light of the moon was just right. Hope lived in Sacramento, California, in a quiet neighborhood, and her home was located on an elevated hillside. Hope's house was on the highest point of the block, so nothing blocked her view from the window. Tonight, however, the moon could vaguely be spotted. The dark clouds hovered in the sky, covering whatever light would have seeped through Hope's curtains. What made the experience worse were the sudden flickers of lightning that made the room flash for a second. Hope had been trying to sleep for about an hour now, but all she did was toss from side to side as she wrapped her blankets around her a little tighter. Every time she started to doze off, she was startled by that same creaking noise she had been hearing for the past few nights. Hope wasn't the type of person that believed in silly monsters that lived under her bed, but something in the back of her head told her there could be a possibility of something, perhaps even more despicable. Of course, imagination didn't have its end, but seeing something with your own eyes, hearing it with your own ears, were proof that something existed. Hope had been trying to fight off the strange suspicion. She hadn't told her parents because when morning came and filled her room with bright sunshine, there wasn't a thing in the world that could make Hope believe anything horrendous had ever happened in her room. Hope's mother had painted the whole room pink and purple, just the way she liked it, and her father bought her a whole lot of stuffed animals to keep her company during the night. It felt like living in a tulip with ponies and fuzzballs. Hope turned around once again in her bed. She tried to block out the noises she heard, but they seemed to be getting louder. Hope sat up and looked around her room. She could see shadows of the furniture, her beanbag chair plopped to the corner. Everything was quiet and still. Hope was about to lay down again when she noticed her closet door slightly opened. She suddenly felt a little uneasy. She didn't remember keeping it open. Hope crawled under her sheets again. She started counting sheep, desperately wanting to fall asleep. 1, 2, 3. Hope's heart started to beat a little faster as she grasped her blanket tighter. What was going on? She gathered her courage and counted another. 4. To her relief, the room was silent, just until a clap of thunder hit her ears. Startled, she widened her eyes. In moments, the flash of lightning allowed her to see her room for what it was. Hope was horrified to see something she didn't recognize standing still in the corner of her room by the window. She now stared directly at a dark shadow in the corner, just a few feet away from her. It shook as it grew taller and darker, until it reached the height of her ceiling. There was no way she was mistaking something else. It was there, it was moving, and it was horrific. Hope was paralyzed in fear. She wanted to call her mother, but she was too scared to make a noise. The tall, dark shadow stood there, watching her. Just then, Hope heard a noise. It wasn't the floorboards creaking. It was something else. She peered over the side of her bed and looked at one of her toys rolling towards her from that very corner. It couldn't have rolled to her all by itself. Hope couldn't take the anxiety anymore. She jumped off her bed and ran down the hall crying. She banged on her parents' door as she restlessly checked her back. "Mommy! Daddy! Open the door!" Hope's parents immediately rushed to answer their daughter. They were worried to see Hope sweating and trembling outside their door. "What's wrong, honey? What happened?" I saw, there was something in my room," Hope glubbed, expecting the rational reply of her parents, that there was nothing to fear. They would laugh it off or be a little annoyed for waking them up in the middle of the night. But to her surprise, Hope's mother nervously shared a glance with her father. They ran down the hall and raced to Hope's bedroom. Hope watched as her parents checked under the bed. They inspected the closet and then locked it shut. They poked, prodded, and scoured every inch of her room, and lastly rechecked the lock on Hope's window. Hope's mother nodded to her father. They put Hope in her bed again and reassured her nothing was in her room. "Don't worry, dear. There's nothing for you to fear. We checked the whole room in front of you. Now you know there is truly nothing here. No monsters, not even any creepy crawlies." Hope was finally able to go to sleep after that night. Hope Lehman was her parents' only child. She was about 8 years old, and although she rarely had any memories of her early years, for as long as she could remember, she had always received tons of love and affection from both her parents. They worried about each and everything that was related to her, and made sure she never experienced the slightest of troubles. Mr. and Mrs. Lehman cherished their daughter. They provided her with everything that would keep her happy and healthy. Over the years, they had actually ended up spoiling their daughter just a bit. But it wasn't just their daughter that had become spoiled. They too had developed quite the bad habit themselves of seeing their daughter smile. It was only a silly little child's toy, or maybe a few days out of the week when Hope had a second or third slice of chocolate cake. That wouldn't do any harm. Hope had slept well after her parents reassured her. But the very next night was even more horrifying, and Hope ended up waking her parents up again. She was satisfied by the sense of relief she got when she watched her parents go through her room. She couldn't understand why she had waited so long and tolerated the fear instead of calling them earlier. But with each and every passing night, Hope caught on quickly. She knew what they were doing. By taking her fears seriously, they were showing her that she was safe and loved and would never be overlooked by her parents. Hope would often see them watching parenting shows or reading parenting books. She thought she remembered the lady on TV saying something like that. But that was just a lesson for her parents, not for Hope. Hope was a smart little girl for her age. She was one of those clever children, the kind of child who figures out early that their parents aren't all-powerful and all-knowing. What Hope learned was that she had a power, and soon enough, waking up her parents became a nightly routine. Hope didn't even get off her bed anymore. She screamed from her room. And as she expected, her parents would rush to her in moments. Not once did they ever complain or tell Hope not to call them for no apparent reason. Hope would watch them inspect her room as she would hide her grin behind her tears. Things went on like this in the Lehman household. Mr. and Mrs. Lehman hadn't slept properly in a long time. More than they felt annoyed of being disturbed in the middle of their slumber, they were worried about their child. It was one night, however, when Hope had cried out for her parents and they came rushing to her call, that Hope couldn't stand it any longer. Hope burst out laughing when her father fell down while examining under the lampshade by her bed, as if monsters could fit up in there. Hope's father got up, rubbing his backside. He asked, "Now, what does my little girl find so funny?" "You," Hope smirked. "You always believe me." But as soon as Hope let the words out of her mouth, she regretted it. She controlled her laughter and grew silent, expecting her mother to scold her. But strange as it was, Hope's father wasn't angry. He furrowed his brows and had a distressed look on his face. He looked at his wife and sighed. He sat down beside Hope and tucked her in bed. He quietly said, "Once, just once, we didn't believe your brother." Hope noticed her mother shed a tear as she kissed her forehead. "Go to sleep, sweetheart. We will always be here for you. You are truly our hope." With that, her mother and father turned off her light and closed her door. And Hope? Being an only child, well, let's just say, Hope didn't sleep well that night. Click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting.